How is it? How did it go? Were you outside all the time?
Yeah, I was outside most of the time. But every time I came in, it was registration was really easy because last night orientation we gave so many of the tests and stuff, so it was really slow.
Yeah, that's good. That's start. Chuma?
Chuma's in lunch.
Yeah, he should be back now. I type Chuma and then iPhone just autocorrects. It's in China. Hello. How are you? I'm good.
Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Happy New Year.
Yes, you're right there.
I know. Thank you for being here. You're always here at our youth assembly, which
I
is
enjoy
always
them.
great.
They're
That's
so
great.
uplifting.
That's great. That's great. Patrick put a lot of. I didn't do anything with this assembly. With both assemblies.
Yeah, I know. You were working on other things.
Can everyone go and sit down? I think we're going to start now.
So
yeah, you can sit down here.
Can everyone please go and sit down after the last photo has been taken? Thank you. Okay, so please everyone sit down. Welcome back. I hope you guys all enjoyed your lunch. We will be dimming the lights in a second after I have introduced the movie and the lady that's next to me. We will be watching an award-winning documentary, My Neighbourhood, which tells the story of a remarkable non-violent campaign in the heart of the world's contested city. On the program, as you can see, we're going to have Rebekah Wingert-Jabi with us today, who co-directed and produced My Neighbourhood. But unfortunately, she fell ill and therefore wasn't able to make it. So if you're watching, get better soon. However, I'm very pleased and thrilled to have with me today Suhad Babaa, who's sitting right next to me. And she's the Community Outreach Manager at Just Vision, which is the organization that co-produced the documentary and a non-for-profit organization that is dedicated to highlighting Palestinians and Israelis working to end the occupation and the conflict through non-violent means. Suhad works intensively with youth educators and faith leaders across the United States to equip audiences with tools that facilitate constructive conversations around the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Please all welcome Suhad Babaa. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the warm welcomes. Before we begin the presentation, thank you, Judith, for that warm introduction. I also wanted to thank the UN for hosting this event and the Friendship Ambassadors Foundation and the many hands that went to work to put together this conference. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, and thank you for traveling many far distances to be here with us. It's a great honor to screen My Neighbourhood for you today. As a little bit of background, as Judith mentioned, my name is Suhad Babaa, and I work with a team called Just Vision. We are Palestinian, Israeli, and North and South American filmmakers, journalists, human rights advocates, and conflict resolution experts who highlight the work of Palestinian and Israeli nonviolence leaders and peace builders working to end the conflict and the occupation through nonviolent means. We tell the stories that you don't often hear on the nightly news. To take a step back, as a little bit of background, our team was emerged in 2003, at the height of the second Intifada, in direct response to the lack of mainstream media coverage of those Palestinians and Israelis who were working nonviolently to end the conflict and the occupation. We were founded on about 2 years of intensive research. We conducted 475 interviews with Palestinians and Israelis who were working in the fields because we wanted to find out what they needed from the international community, what they felt like their biggest challenges were and obstacles. And overwhelmingly, the responses that came back were that they felt invisible. They felt as though their voices were not being heard, and that they didn't have access to important channels within their own communities, across communities, and the broader international community. And so Just Vision today provides a platform for those voices, because we know at the end of the day, it's civil society leaders, nonviolence leaders, peace builders, community leaders, faith leaders, who are going to push the agenda forward on an issue that has been largely left at a political status quo for several decades. Just to give you a little bit of broad background about how our organization has evolved, in 2006 we released our first documentary film. It was called Encounterpoint. That film follows several protagonists, Israelis and Palestinians, who had lost something incredibly precious to them: children, homes, land. And despite those immense tragedies, they were working within their communities to push them forward to resolving this conflict. As we were touring with the film, we often received two refrains. From Israeli and American audiences, we often heard, "Nonviolence is all well and good, but until there's a Palestinian Gandhi, then there will not be peace. There is no partner for peace." And in Palestinian audiences, we often heard, "Look, we've tried nonviolence and it doesn't work." And so being the team that we are, we set out to find a story that challenged those frames of reference. Now this is in 2006. What we ended up stumbling upon was an amazing story that took place in a village called Budrus that sits in the West Bank in the Ramallah district. And there, in 2003 to 2004, there was an incredible nonviolent campaign that was led by Palestinians and joined by Israelis that united the local political factions from Hamas to Fatah, as well as men and women of the village, to stop the Israeli separation barrier from confiscating its lands. Now, while there had been nonviolent organizing used within Palestinian and Israeli society to challenge the occupation for several decades, this story was the first of its kind in that it was the first to successfully have stopped the Israeli separation barrier from taking over its lands. And yet it wasn't documented as of 2006. So when we released the film in 2009, we were really looking to put nonviolence on the map, to engage audiences in a constructive, forward-thinking way toward approaching this conflict. And since then, we have turned our attention to Jerusalem. I am proud to share with you today My Neighbourhood, which is our latest documentary film. And it tells the story of the settlement expansion that's taking place in Jerusalem today, in the heart of the city, and the nonviolent organizing that's taking place in response to that. Now, our team has an office in Sheikh Jarrah, in the neighborhood where this film takes place, and so we've seen this neighborhood evolve over time, and it tells a much larger story of what's happening in East Jerusalem. And we know, because of Jerusalem's significance, both geographically, religiously, and emotionally, that what happens in Jerusalem matters, and that it does not only matter for the Israelis and Palestinians who reside there, but it would have larger ramifications on the political landscape of the entire region. And at this moment, for many of you who have been watching the headlines, we know that Jerusalem has returned to the headlines. And we're at a point where our attention to the issues facing Jerusalem matters. The Israeli and American governments are currently reassessing their agendas. And we as an international community can influence those decisions simply by paying attention and making our voices heard. And with that, without further ado, I'm proud to share My Neighborhood, and I'm looking forward to engaging in a conversation with all of you after the film.
Thank you so much for that. Yes. Thank you. So we will be watching the documentary now. Just a practical issue. If you cannot hear the documentary well enough, please put on your headphones. Everyone should have a headphone, so... Okay, we're good to go? Yeah.
أنا بالصف السابع. أنا متوقع يا أصير يا صحفي يا محامي وأساعد الناس. I live in Jerusalem in Sheikh Jarrah. Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. This is my father.
Wake up.
This is my grandmother. This is the kitchen. This is my library. I have lots of books.
ايش بدك تسوي لك يلا في
أنا بعرف أسوي.
استنى انا استنى.
أنا بدي أسوي وقتيش.
هاي بتصير انت استنى.
عارفين محمد تعرف كيف تطبخ؟
لا تعرفي كثير غلبة بس.
يا الله.
نعمل هيك عشان احنا نجي نسبح له. إحراج هذا بكرهنا.
أنت أخرج.
أنا إلي عايشة بالبيت هذا من 1956 يعني حوالي 54 سنة. فكنا ساكنين في حيفا وفي 48 تعرف صار الحرب تبع سنة 48. جيت أنا قلت يعني استأجرنا بيت بالأجر. بعدين أجت الوكالة بعد مدة قال في مشروع بناء واللي بحب يقدم للبناء. قمنا إحنا قدمنا طلبات وطلع لي هذا البيت. قعدت فيه أنا وجوزي وولادي وابني. لا شفنا يهود ولا بنعرف اليهود ولا شيء. يوم من الأيام ما شفنا إلا واحد جاي يقول إنه هذا بيتي هذا أرضي. يعني من يوم ما ولا اليوم وإحنا في اعتراض الله.
תגידי לו שלום.
שלום.
איך קוראים לך? אני רוצה לדעת איך קוראים לך.
מנוחה.
ולך קוראים?
מנוחה.
מנוחה.
לא נכון.
לא קוראים לך מנוחה? אז איך קוראים לך?
We take house after house because we prove in the court that this area belong to the Jewish, and because that all this area will be a Jewish neighborhood. Our dream that all East Jerusalem will be like West Jerusalem, Jewish capital of Israel.
I saw like a lot of policemen, and I saw a lot of anger faces.
هي تمت الساعة 4:30 صباحا. كانت الدنيا مظلمة عتمة وما لقينا إلا الأزاز بتكسر والأبواب بتتفجر. دخلوا بشكل وحشي يعني.
They broken off the door. They can't let me take my stuff. They fight on my cousin and my brother.
وبعد ساعة جابوا المستوطنين سكنوهم في قلب البيت، يعني شفناهم بعينينا.
شفت هيك إنه عصبت كتير. أول قصيدة كتبتها في حياتي ما كنتش يعني مش عارف شو الشعر. سقطت الدار العار تتبدعون أوراق الغار العار أيها الأنت اليوم دوري وغدا دورك وبعده دور الجار العار استيقظوا استيقظوا.
يعني احنا من اول دقيقة للاخلاء قلنا انه اليوم بدأت المعركة، معركة العودة الى البيوت ومعركة حماية بيوت حي الشيخ جراح.
The Bible says that this area and this country belong to the Jewish people. This is Jewish land and the Jewish need to live here.
المستوطنين بياخدوا لسه على ناحية دينية إنه بيقولوا هذه الأرض الرب أعطانا إياها، هاي الأرض الله قالنا أي تمن ناخدها منكم.
We are not finished the job. We are going to the next neighborhood and after that we will go more.
That day they came at 10 o'clock. I was in the school. My grandma was making coffee. One of the settlers come inside and knocked at the door and asked her, "This furniture for who?" She said, "Which furniture?" And she come out.
أمسكهم أنا دفعوني على إيدي ضربوني على إيدي حملوني نيموني بالمستشفى.
When I came back to school, I knew that my grandma in the hospital. I told them, my grandma in the hospital, my grandma in the hospital. I was like screaming at the settlers and put on the doors, "We won't leave." I feel like anger. I feel so angered that day. أبوي بنى هذا البيت وأجا القاضي الإسرائيلي سكره، وكيف إنه إحنا ما قدرناش نعيش فيه عشان نبغى رخصة والمستوطنين بيقدروا يعيشوا فيه برخصة.
صار واعي، صار كرجل أكبر من سنه، صار يعني حائض عليهم.
I hate them. I hate them for a reason, because they're making our lives worst life in the world.
בחוויה שלי נורא קל לחיות בארץ אם אתה יהודי, בן לבית טוב. נורא קל לחיות חיים מאוד נוחים בארץ. אמא שלי נולדה וגדלה בארצות הברית. אבא שלי נולד בהולנד וגדל מגיל צעיר בארצות הברית. אנחנו ילדים כבר נולדנו וגדלנו כאן. זה לא בית אקטיביסטי. זה לא משהו שגדלנו איתו. אני חושב שבאמת העניין הזה של חשיפה וקבלת יותר מידע על מה שמתרחש בארץ גרמה לי, יצרה אצלי איזושהי תודעה שצריך גם לצאת ולפעול בעניין. אני שמעתי על הפינוי, על מה שקורה בשייח' ג'ראח. בימי שישי אחר הצהריים המתנחלים היו, אחרי תפילת השבת, הם היו יורדים חזרה לתוך השכונה והם היו מטילים טרור שם על התושבים.
עוד מעט אתם תשמעו בפחים של רמאללה.
רצינו להגיע לשכונה ולהיות איתם באמת לקראת כניסת השבת כשהם היו מותקפים.
אני זוכרת מתח מאוד מאוד גדול עם המתנחלים שהוא עדיין קיים.
אתה יהודי או לא? למה? לא תחבר, אתה יהודי או לא? דבר יפה. מסכן אחד. אתה יודע שאני מחרים עליך? איזה מסכן אתה באמת. מה, תמשיך עליך. אם באמת לא מחר לדבר גם תמשיך עליך. בוא'נה, אתה לא אוהב המדינה תלך, אתה לא אוהב המדינה תלך.
הרעיון של הצעדות זה עלה בקבוצה הזאת של הפעילים במטרה לעודד מודעות מעבר לקהילה המאוד חזקה ומאוד קטנה של הפעילים שיש.
אני זוכרת את הצעדה הראשונה שעשינו ממרכז העיר, היו את הטופים ואז מתחילים לצעוד ומרימים שלטים. זה התחיל ממש בקטן, 20-30 אנשים.
להביא את הדברים לעין הישראלית, את מה שקורה במזרח ירושלים, זה דבר אחד שישראלים יכולים וצריכים לעשות.
لما أشوف الإسرائيليين بيجوا معنا كانت أول ردة فعل إلي إنهم هدول يهود. كيف هدول يهود؟ هيك إنه أول مرة بشوفهم في حياتي إنه هدول يهود، كيف بيجوا بتضامنوا معنا؟ بعدين فهمت إنه هدول في إشي اسمه يسار ويمين، في أشياء إنه وجهات النظر بتختلف بين الشعوب. What does voting day?
It says solidarity Sheikh Jarrah against the fascism, and in Arabic تضامن Sheikh Jarrah.
I want to get one. Oh, thank you.
Cool.
Like this is solidariyot. Sheikh Jarrah. نجد الفاشيزم. Oh, I speak English. I speak Hebrew.
מאבק שלי, המאבק שלנו, הוא לא נגד המתנחלים. אבל המאבק שלי הוא במדינה. כי אנשים אלימים ואנשים משוגעים יש בכל חברה ובכל מקום. הבעיה זה שכאן הם זוכים לגב, הם זוכים לתמיכה.
העם היהודי לא הולך לוותר על ירושלים, ולא זו בלבד, אלא שאנחנו גם נזכה לראות עוד הרבה מאוד יהודים מתיישבים בכל חלקי ירושלים המזרחית בקרוב.
כשהתחילו ההפגנות בשייח' ג'ראח, זה היה נראה כאילו שתוך כמה חודשים אנחנו נהיה בדרך להתנחלות של מאות יחידות דיור בשייח' ג'ראח. תוכניות, התחילו לפנות משפחות, דברים התנהלו מאוד מהר.
כי מה שהמתנחלים עושים, והם מתבססים על זה שבמדינת ישראל יש חקיקה שהיא לא שוויונית בעליל, והיא מפלה בין יהודים לפלסטינאים. אבל יהודים המתנחלים באים לכאן והם אומרים זאת הייתה אדמה יהודית לפני 48, וחוק מאפשר להם לקבוע את זה חזרה. אבל כל הפלסטינים להם עיר הם לא יכולים אפילו לגשת, אין סעיף בחוק, אין חוק, אין שום אפשרות אפילו להגיש בקשה לתביעת האדמה הזאת.
ואני רואה בזה המשך של המפעל היהודי-ציוני, המשך שיבת ציון, זה הכל, זה בא על חשבון הערבים, כן, גם בג"ץ והכנסת בנויים על חשבון ערבים, וגם המדינה כאן הוקמה, כן, על חשבון חלק מהתושבים הערבים שגרו פה. וזהו.
שייח' ג'ראח ממש והחדירו לי את התובנה שהמערכת כאן באמת מתייחסת אחרת לאוכלוסיות אחרות. מאוד קשה לי לדמיין את החיים ולגדל ילדים במקום הזה כמו שהוא היום.
يعني أحكي لك المضبوط ما بأمن فيه لأنه يعني بدك يتركوا شعبهم ودينهم ويتبعونا ما أظن.
Any certificates? They're amazingly gorgeous. They're wood-fired from a course he did. He could tell you all about it technically. But
let's go sit on the balcony.
I think I'm the perfect example of somebody who preferred not to deal with this stuff. And it's only because the kids forced me to like, hey, we didn't force you. They forced me by their activities, by their saying, this is important, this makes a difference. You know, it's the old, where were you when something was happening? You know, stand up and be counted.
זה בעצם הפך את הפוליטיקה למשהו שהוא חלק מהיום-יום. כולם חוץ מאבא שלי, כבר בהפגנה. אבא שלי מבחינה פוליטית, אני חושב, בסך הכל תומך בדברים שאנחנו עושים, אבל היציאה נגד המערכת נורא מפחידה אותו. אבל אבא שלי הודיע שהיום, ביום שישי הקרוב, הוא גם יגיע לראשונה.
I was choosing my sign. I took this one. One, two, three, four, occupation no more. 5, 6, 7, 8, stop their sisters, stop their heads. 5, 6, 7, 8.
משהו בחוויה מאוד חזקה שם, שבעצם זה שבאתי ועמדתי ביחד עם פלסטינים. אני חושב שזה איזה שבר בתוך החוויה הישראלית שלי. תמיד הסתדרתי עם המערכת.
שיחוקו לחוקים, ציוד אזרחי.
I have to say, I'm not a big demonstration person. Whenever my children get arrested, which is with some degree of regularity, I have a very, very difficult time. It brings up very bad memories for me.
אנחנו מבקשים, מפגינים, להיכנס לתוך השכונה.
אני אומר, יש לו כזה 5 דקות.
I'm the child of Holocaust survivors, and the few people in my family who survived were helped by righteous people. We grew up very much knowing that just and righteous and brave people can make a difference. And I think that's a message that we imparted to our children. And I think they're living out this message in their own way and in circumstances that are appropriate to what's going on in Jerusalem right now.
في ناس يعني يقولوا انه هذول يهود، يعني خلص انه يهود شو يفيدونا. لا، انا بقول عكس الشيء، ساعدونا وكثير سهلوا علينا اشياء، بس برضه ان هم يهود كل من خلال هذه المظاهرات عمالهم بيكبروا الحزب تبعهم، وبرضه هم بيساعدونا وبيساعدوا حالهم. ليش ما يساعدوش حالهم؟
חדשות השבת עם אושרת קוטלר בן גד.
שלום, ערב טוב לכם. בפתח הדברים הערב, הפגנות השמאל נגד ההתיישבות היהודית בשייח' ג'ראח. ערב טוב אושרת, כ-3,000 פעילי שמאל וערבים מכל הארץ משתתפים בשעה זו בעצרת בשכונת שייח' ג'ראח. העצרת מתנהלת בינתיים כסדרה.
יש שמאל חדש שיודע שהמאבק הזה לא יוכרע על הנייר, אלא על הקרקע, בגבעות, בכרמים ובמטעי הזיתים.
היו המון אנשים, הגיעו אלפי אנשים לשייח' ג'ראח בשנתיים האחרונות שלא היו מגיעים אם לא היו בהם את ההפגנות האלה.
במקום שיש עוול ויש אי צדק ויש הפרת זכויות אנושיות וזורקים אנשים החוצה מהבתים שלהם, אז שם אני מרגישה חובה להיות.
بقول الحمد لله لسه في امل في الدنيا انه لسه في حدا بيتظاهر معنا. عن طريق تحرك الشعوب كيف رح يصير اسمه؟
בשנתיים האחרונות בשייח' ג'ראח ראינו כל מיני שינויים. קודם כל התקשורת התחילה לדווח על שייח' ג'ראח כמקום שיש בו אפליה ויש בו אלימות משטרתית ויש בו מתנחלים שלא ברור עד מתי יימשך, אבל לא היו עוד פינויים. במובן הזה שייח' ג'ראח מעלה איזושהי תקווה, אבל בתוך איזושהי מציאות שהיא מפחידה אותי. המציאות היא שהמתנחלים עדיין שם. יש עדיין תוכניות להשתלט על עוד בתים.
وصاروا تقريبا ناس كتير يعرفوا القصة اللي هون. يعني هذا الاشي اللي سوته الوزارة كتير اشي هو منيح، بس رح يضل الوضع حلو إلا إذا يعني صحيوا أهل القدس من السبات الشتوي تبعنا.
לי המעורבות הפעילות הפוליטית עשתה שני דברים. מצד אחד היא גרמה לי להרגיש, גרמה לי להיות הרבה יותר ביקורתי כלפי המקום שאני חי בו. מצד שני זה נורא קשר אותי במקום הזה. זה גרם לי לתובנה שאכפת לי ממה שקורה כאן ושאני נשאר כאן כדי להיות מעורב.
أنا شايف الحياة الشيخ جراح صعبة. بعد ما أخذ الدار كنا دائما أول متأمنين إنه رح ترجع الدار. أما هلا بقولوا إذا رجعت الدار مش لترجع الدار يعني. أنا حابة أصير بس أكبر، بدي أصير محامي أتخصص محامي حقوق إنسان. هاي المستوطنين عايشين في الدار. أنا عندي أمل إنه أكبر أو بالقانون أطلعهم.
much for sharing and watching this documentary. It was very interesting to see this about a well-known conflict, and good to see that both parties are working together and actually standing up for each other's rights, as opposed to what you normally see in the media. Now, we do have some time for Q&A. I certainly have some questions, but I rather would like to hear from the audience, so please raise your hands if you have any questions. Yes?
Good afternoon.
Just have to press the button.
No. Hello?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you.
My name is Daquan Marcel Love. I'm a junior political science major, leadership studies minor from Hampton University in Virginia in the United States of America. My question is, first off, this documentary was amazing, and I learned a lot of stuff that I actually didn't already, was not informed of in the media, and it was presented in a way that was very informative and enlightening, so thank you for that. But my question is, when you actually were compiling this documentary, could you discuss briefly some of the challenges that you may have had to overcome with regards to actually getting people to speak about the issue, or getting both sides to the issue in the documentary?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for those warm comments, and it means a lot to me as well as my team, and I know for certain those that are involved in the neighborhood and the communities that are highlighted in the film. As a little bit of background, the film was, the documenting of the film was largely done by our co-director for the film, Rebekah Wingert-Jabi. And she was really on the scene as soon as the first eviction orders were issued, beginning in 2008. And she was there to document what was happening in the neighborhood. And we came in, Just Vision, the team that I work with, came in to work alongside her to conduct many of the interviews that you see embedded within the footage that she had captured. Now, a lot of the work that we do in our documentary filmmaking, from Counterpoint to Budrus to My Neighborhood, which you saw today, involves a lot of community and trust building. And so, like Budrus, we worked with both Israelis and Palestinians. We hire research teams to do the background research needed in understanding the facts and the various narratives that we get from protagonists. But by and large, both the Israeli activists and the Palestinian residents involved in Sheikh Jarrah were very much willing to have their voices heard, wanted their voices heard. And so I think that's a really important piece. In our previous, and to my knowledge, there weren't immense challenges. There were definitely getting an understanding of the various narratives and how different people were involved. And that's a rigorous research phase. With Budrus, which was our previous film, we worked really intensively with the Israeli military. One of the main protagonists, for example, is Yasmin Levy, who was an Israeli soldier with the border police. Or the Border Patrol, as well as Doron Spielman, who was at the time the spokesman for the Israeli army. And both of those individuals worked with us to provide interviews, to provide insight into what's taking place over the course of the events there. And a lot of it has to do with, I think part of it is building a diverse team. Our team is Palestinian, Israeli, and North and South American. We spend a lot of time on the ground. We have teams on the ground. And I go back, for example, I'm based out of Washington, D.C., so not too far from where you are. But I'm back in the region every three or four times a year. So part of it for us is building trust, and when we began research in 2001, the first few years of our work was simply building trust with those nonviolence leaders and community leaders that we were hoping to work with and highlight and engage. So it's in that vein that we've been able to work across, I think, a pretty wide range of audiences, from, in the United States, Jewish, American, Muslim American, Arab American, Christian American audiences, educators and students. We work intensively as well in Israeli society as well as Palestinian society, both in Israel proper as well as occupied Palestinian territories, the West Bank and Gaza, and East Jerusalem. So with that, I think it's always a process of getting to know the community. And that's one of, I think, both a community organizing practice, but generally speaking, when working on an issue that's so divisive, that have so many various nuances and narratives, I think this exact question about addressing what those challenges might be as you're trying to engage and work on this issue is such an essential one, I think, across the board, whether you're working on this one or any other one.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was waiting for it to turn green. Anyway, hi, my name is Rebekah and I'm from Bahrain. I just wanted to ask why the Palestinian or the Arab-Israeli conflict, why was that of interest of the organization in particular? And I think I've watched a lot of documentaries being from that part of the world, but nothing was as kind of upfront as this. Did you have trouble filming the settlers going into the home, or was it accepted that you were there with a camera, or was it difficult for you to kind of get that footage? Because it really had an impact, I think, on, I guess, me, to see something so surreal, kind of everything happening in front of you. So it's a great message to kind of send out. People don't really realize how intense it is, and I think you paint like a great picture of it.
Thank you so much, Rebekah, for those comments. I really appreciate it. In terms of why the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we focus solely on this, and this is something that we live, eat, and breathe. I think there's, I'll tell my personal story, and then I'll also share a little bit about the founder who launched Just Vision in 2003. As way of background, I'm Palestinian and Korean, born in the United States, and in many ways, my story predates me. So growing up in Southern California, in a middle-class family, both my father is Muslim and my mother is Christian. I was born in a multi-faith home, and so initially my interest was really understanding the differences of the cultures that I was growing up with, and understanding where those similarities lie. And I saw, I came into sort of my prime during 9/11, and I saw the landscape and the discourse here in the United States shift dramatically. My father, I recall stories of my father saying, "Suhad, don't ever get into politics. Politics ruins lives," and being very guarded about his identity as a Palestinian and as a Muslim. And so this began, I think, my journey in politicization on this issue, and that's what brought me to this work. Just Vision itself is an organization that was founded in 2003 by a woman named Ronit Avni. She's today our executive director. Prior to working on Just Vision and really being the brainchild of Just Vision, she was working with a team called Witness. They were at the time based up in Canada, and they were working to equip advocates from San Francisco juvenile detention centers to Nepali women, Pakistan, Afghanistan, to really equip advocates with multimedia tools to build into their advocacy campaigns. And this is before the rise of social media. This is before we have our smartphones where you can grab a photo or an image and circulate it across the internet. And when 9/11 hit, she was based in New York at the time, and she felt like her backyard was burning. She's American, today American citizen holder, but she's also Israeli. She's an Israeli citizen as well as a Canadian citizen, and she felt a deep need to work on this issue in a constructive way. Now, with the work that she was doing with Witness, which was functioning under the human rights paradigm, where there's often a clear victimizer and a clear victim, in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that narrative is not so clear or distinct. And so the work that she was compelled to do was to combine arts and politics, which are passion points for her, to humanize all of those that are involved in the conflict, realizing that so many of the voices, both Palestinians and Israelis, weren't being heard, that were actually doing really good work to move this agenda forward, and instead what was being captured on mainstream media outlets, especially I think in the United States and the broader international community, as well as in Israel and Palestinian society, was a big focus on the political leaders and the militants on both sides, while those who were actually constructively engaging on the ground were not being heard. And so that's really how we all began this work. And I have to say that our team is a pretty diverse team, but many of us, all of us have some personal stake in the issue, and that's what draws us to this. And in terms of the media that was captured and how we are there on the scene, I think one of the things that's important to note about documentation of film, or documentation of the events that are taking place, is that simply having a camera in some ways often offers protection for those people who are experiencing oppression or regression or aggression of some sort. So in many cases, like with Budrus, for example, a lot of the footage from that film, even though we came on the scene in 2006, was captured by activists from 2003 and 2004 who were there, who were simply using film as a way of documenting these, what they saw as human rights abuses, or as a way of providing some level of protection to the residents there. In Sheikh Jarrah, I have been there a number of times, and it's literally an 8-minute walk. For those of you who might be familiar with Jerusalem, have been to the Old City, it's literally an 8-minute walk from the Damascus Gate, but it is in the heart of Jerusalem. Mohammed, if you may have caught this in the film, but Mohammed is actually living side by side with settlers. His family did not receive a full eviction at this point. Basically, the story goes that Mohammed's family had been growing, and his father wanted to expand the house, and like many Palestinian residents living in Jerusalem, had issued a request for a permit to expand the home. It was rejected. And like many Palestinian residents who have received a rejection on their permits, he expanded anyways. Now, usually the case is, in these scenarios, that the court will order a demolition or assert fines, exorbitant fines on the Palestinian family. In this scenario, the court simply held onto the keys and ordered that the extension be closed off. Now, this happened in the late 90s, and in 2008, which is, it's documented here, settlers just arrived at the home with the keys to the extension and moved into the extension of the home. So the main portion of the house, currently, Mohammed's family lives there, and the settlers live next door. Now, these aren't just a settler family. As you notice, these are young boys with big dogs that rotate on 8-hour increments. There are people who, and as you saw, there are so many activists that are involved, as well as Palestinian residents that are documenting what's happening on a regular basis. Whenever I go there, there's always 2 or 3 journalists or activists coming in and out of Mohammed's home. It's quite busy. I don't exactly know how they handle all of it. And there are flare-ups at times, but this is something that I think people face and do on a regular basis. So this is the reality. To date, Mohammed's family has still not received the extension of his home, and the other portion of his home where he's currently living has a pending court order for a full eviction.
Yes, yeah, just right.
Waiting for that. Hello. First of all, thank you for your for this very inspiring movie. Actually, I'm a student at the Rabat School of Governments and Economics in Morocco, and we really do feel very concerned about the Palestinian cause. And actually, the Palestinian Authority has been granted the status of state observer at the UN. But meanwhile, the Israeli government has been tackling this decision of the UN by reinforcing the settlements in the Gush, I mean, in Palestine. So my question is, how do you think this conflict could be resolved? I mean, it might be a kind of idealistic question, but I think that the Knesset, I mean, Israel has been talking about a binational country, uniting Palestine and Israel. So I would like to have your opinion about that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And your name, by the way?
Mariam.
Mariam. So nice to meet you. Thank you for that question. First of all, I think, one of the things that have become a great interest of mine, I think, driven for multiple reasons, are looking at larger social movements across history. And if we look at social movement history, whether you're talking about the US civil rights movement or the revolution in India and countless others, we know that in situations where there are asymmetrical power structures in place, whether it be legal or geographical or what have you, and in this case there's a combination of a number of asymmetrical power structures in play, we know that the populations that tend to have lesser power within the system eventually rise up, eventually ask for change. Now, what the character of that change looks like is what we're concerned with, right? We know that the nonviolent organizing that has been taking place in Israel and occupied Palestinian territories is not new, but has received very little attention. In fact, many people don't know to this day that there is nonviolent organizing happening as often as it does, or still recognize, for example, the first Intifada, which was largely characterized by nonviolent organizing, whether it be in the form of boycotts or protests or what have you, as a violent movement. So I think one of the things that we've seen specifically with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and I'll use the Oslo agreements as an example, is that top-down processes, top-down negotiations that are seeking to implement some sort of peace and resolution to this conflict have failed. And one of the reasons that those things have failed is because, as cited by many Palestinians and Israelis, because there's a lack of buy-in at the ground level. That at the end of the day, the Palestinians and the Israelis that would have to live with that decision and then would have to implement it don't necessarily agree with what the political leaders are saying. Now, whether it be because the political leaders lack courage or authority or legitimacy, we know that in these scenarios, historically, that social movements eventually encourage political leaders to lead, or rather follow. And so what Just Vision is working to do is really to help nonviolent leaders and peace builders who are doing this work increase their masses, be able to have a louder voice so that they have larger influence on the world stage. So with that, Just Vision as an organization doesn't advocate for any political configuration, whether it be one state or two state. Now, this doesn't mean that we are not political. We are largely political by nature of the work that we do. But we understand that both Palestinians and Israelis are there to stay, and at the end of the day, the solution that they derive will be the one that will be implemented. And so we're working to support that.
Thank you so much for that. At this stage, we cannot take any more questions because we have to move on to the next session, which is the Global Partnership Forum. But Suhad will be putting up sheets at the IYC that's just outside. If you would like to leave your contact details, she can actually be sending out emails about Just Vision. So,
thank you so much, Judith. Thank you so much, Judith. Just final words. Thank you so much for being here. I see a few hands in the audience. I would love to stick around if you have a minute to talk through some of those lingering questions. But I would also love to be in touch with you. So definitely sign up on the list or contact me at suhad@justvision.org. That is S as in Sam, U-H-A-D as in dog at justvision.org. And check out our website at www.justvision.org where you'll find full organizational contact information, and I'll be sure to be looking out for your notes. With that, I hope this conversation continues, and I would love to be in touch with you, so please do. We have to find a way to connect.
Let's give our applause. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.